Who's the best corner, Stephen A., in your opinion, right now in football?
Well, I got to admit to you, when I was listening to Mr. Feely yesterday talk about Patrick Patterson, I got to tell you that I was of the mindset he made a very, very good argument on behalf of his teammate in Arizona, simply because of his speed, his quickness, his ability to do what he's done, and the absence of a supporting cast that Sherman is enjoying in Seattle. Having said that, I would say to you that it's very, very difficult for me to gauge that, because I think that right now Sherman is really showcasing his talents, his skills. He's got good height. He gets in guys' faces. He gets in guys' heads. His team is enjoying the most success. But I would consider it a toss-up between him, Patrick Patterson. When I look at Darrelle Revis, I'm aware of his level of excellence throughout his years with the New York Jets. I also recognize that last year wasn't his fault that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 4-12. But they did have the 27th ranked defense, okay? And I'm sorry, not the 27th ranked defense, but they were ranked like 27th against the pass. And so if that's happening, even though it may not have been Revis's fault, it's very, very difficult for me, Skip, to quantify, whether or not he's the best or not based on the numbers. He had 11 passes defense last year. He forced 2 fumbles, had about 2 interceptions, okay? I understand all of that. But how am I supposed to gauge whether or not he's the best when you consider the absence of success Tampa Bay had on defense, not just their overall record, and you compare that to what went on in Arizona and Seattle? I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to lie.
Yep, I find this a tough one. I find this unfair to Darrelle Revis because he was coming off ACL. It was devastation, and I think he came back a little too quickly last year. So it's unfair to rank him right now, because I think you and I would agree the Revis that we saw the previous years, man, he wasn't just good. He was second to Deion Sanders on my all-time corners list. So I got to give him a little break here, a little pass. Now, I'm not sure a corner could have a much greater year than Richard Sherman had this year. Just a devastating year. He put himself in the spotlight, and he continued to back it up play after game after play after game. I also loved what Jay Feely said, because before that draft, I said I would take Patrick Peterson #1 overall in that draft. I thought he was the best athlete in that draft, the best all-around football player. So you have to look at what Patrick Peterson has done without much help in his secondary, because people get to the point where they don't throw it at Patrick Peterson anymore. He did have Honey Badger for a while last year that helped, but at safety, Jeremiah Bell, Rashad Johnson, the other corner, Gerard Powers, I don't know, not great. It's certainly not Seattle. So, excuse me, this is a tough one to rank. In my gut right now, I think that at age 23, Patrick Peterson may be the best corner. But that's to take nothing away from what Richard Sherman has done at age 25, because he was drafted in the same draft 149 slots behind Patrick Peterson. And I read a capsule on Richard Sherman pre-draft after the combine, and it said, doesn't cover well enough, doesn't have enough makeup speed. Well, I'd say Richard made them eat those words, because he's right there.
Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from, and Patrick Peterson, but he's a bad boy, and he does have the makeup speed, and he can cover you, and obviously he doesn't have as much help as Peterson. We all know that. By the way, I apologize. I don't know why I kept calling him Patterson.
You got NBA on your brain.
There you go what I'm saying. I meant Peterson. But the thing about it is that, listen, when you look at Richard Sherman, I think that ultimately, Skip, you got to stop doing what – this is something that you do. A lot of times you take into consideration where somebody was drafted. Well, that's an indictment on the NFL personnel clearly not doing their homework enough. If you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's not about Richard Sherman or Patrick Peterson. So ultimately, we have to judge them based on what we see. And what does your eye tell you?
Yep.
My eye. Here's how we have to look at it. Could Richard Sherman be who he is on the Arizona Cardinals? And could Patrick Peterson be who he is on Seattle? And I think if you ask yourself that question, then it is clear that Patrick Peterson could be lethal on Seattle.
I agree.
I don't know if Richard Sherman could be who he is on Arizona, but I don't want to doubt him because he's made liars of the doubters.
He has.
And that's why, to me, it's up there right now like this.